Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and I'm thrilled today to have with us Justin Maxwell. Justin is a partner of at Big Life Financial. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks, Jamie.
Absolutely. I'm excited. This is going to be a fun conversation. You and I were chatting briefly beforehand, and I listened to another podcast that you were on recently, which was kind of piqued my interest for sure. And I'm excited to go down some angles you didn't get the chance to talk about on that show. So I know you're going to deliver a lot of value for our listener out there. Justin, who are you and what are you up to today?
Yeah, so I'm a tax and wealth strategist, and is what I help. My primary focus is just helping the small business owner keep more of the money they're making and then make deliberate decisions about where they put it so they can grow it safely and maximize their value and their contribution to the world. I've been able to help business owners around the country save tens of millions of dollars in taxes and in just unnecessary spending. I think we might have crossed the 50 million threshold just recently. So
Wow.
we've saved people a lot of money, and it's not about trying to save people money to be greedy or to spend money on things, but to
Mhm.
save money so you can deliver more value, be more present with your family, and just be a better contributor to your circle of influence.
I love that. I mean, I thought that all entrepreneurs and small business owners were just, greedy, selfish jerks who like to hoard money and count it all day long, but apparently not. So
Yeah.
that's me being sarcastic. No, I love that. It's awesome because I totally fully believe in that concept and that principle as far as um, you know showing up and becoming the best version of yourself as an entrepreneur or small business owner or investor that just overflows into all other aspects of your life and you're able to impact more people. And I truly believe that small business is the backbone of our economy and is a force for good. But we'll save my rant for another
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, it's good.
So
We're on the same page there.
absolutely. And so, Justin, I know you haven't always been doing this. It hasn't been all that long, actually, that you've kind of been down this particular path, or at least part of your path and your journey. So, let's jump back into your backstory. What's where would you like to start? I know you and I were chatting a little bit about this beforehand, and it sounds like it some of the challenges you've been through actually kind of started maybe at a very young age. So pick it up from there if you would.
Yeah, so I think it's a good note for your listeners to just know that I was a school teacher. I had a master's degree. I thought I was going to want to even go all the way to a doctorate degree and just be in the education academia setting. But I think it's important to note that I chose that because of my childhood and like what I think what will be beneficial is listening is I chose that because that was a safe route. In my entire life, I always played it safe. I never went for the big thing. But the concept I think is important is like as a youth, as a child, like I always felt I had the skills to go big and to be successful, like at sport or at what I always felt like I could do it. But whenever
Hmm.
it came time to perform, I would always do something that didn't allow me to shine the spotlight, or I would hold
Hmm.
back, or I wouldn't participate, or I don't want to say purposely fail because I don't think I ever
Hmm.
purposely failed, but I wouldn't do it. So just as an
Hmm.
example, this is just an example I think can relate because I used to wrestle in high
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
And like I felt like in my senior year specifically that I was good enough to actually start like actually having some success. But when it came time to performing, like there was this internal fear that if I became successful and then failed, like I'd be seen as a failure. So
Mm.
my thought process was if I never truly became truly successful, I can never be seen as a failure. So I'll always just do things where I can succeed, but never push beyond that. So whenever anything that I
Hmm.
did, I never pushed beyond the point of
Hmm.
failure. So my
Interesting.
whole life, it was never getting past that point where I would actually truly fail. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
Sure.
why I chose teaching because I knew that I could succeed in teaching. And teachers, it's hard to get fired, it's hard to fail. Like you could suck, you could be good, you can succeed.
Yeah.
but teaching's safe. It was going to give
Sure.
me income. I was going to be seen as a success to everyone around me. People appreciate teachers, people love them. But
Sure.
for me, that was the safe spot. And that was
You weren't.
exactly what I'd done my entire life.
Got it. Interesting. And obviously we're not going to, there, we don't have to dive into the reasons why you think that, maybe lack of, it sounds like you just didn't want to take that risk, consistently. You had that fear of failure, basically, is what it sounds like it boils down to. Fear of success, but really is a fear of failure, or a fear of being spotlighted, as a failure. Again, I'm just playing
Right.
therapist here.
Yeah. Right. No, I think you're
But
right. Yeah.
and so, for probably numerous reasons, that fear was there at a young age. And to be clear, teachers serve, and I'm sure you would echo this, but teachers serve a valuable, role in our society. And my, I have my family, there are a lot of teachers in my family. And it's not that we're knocking teachers here in any way, shape, or form, but for you, it sounds like, you tell me if I'm wrong, that in the end you weren't really living up to your full potential. You thought there was maybe, just more, or this wasn't really the plan, the best use of your own talents and resources. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. I myself needed to do more. It wasn't that teaching sucks or that teachers can't be
Hmm.
successful. And honestly, I could have pursued and done more in teaching. Like I could have started entrepreneurial things with inside of teaching and done it.
Mm.
But for me, I had to exit teaching to fully realize my full potential. So teachers, you don't have to exit teaching to
Sure.
like reach your full potential. But for
Right.
myself, like teaching was like the embodiment of all of the things that I'd always done my entire life. And so for me, I had to push past that. I had to exit
Sure.
it to prove myself that I could actually choose to fail and choose to be successful. That was
Yeah.
my journey to get out of that, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. And I've used this one. I've referred to this a few times on the show, but I had a college roommate who was a power lifter, and he would talk about, he would squat like 800 pounds, and people would say, that's very risky. That's terrible for your knees. And he would say, well, would you rather rust out or wear out? And he'd rather wear out because, yeah, it might do some collateral damage. And, but would you really, when you look back, would you like to say, I never really gave it my all? I'm not sure. I could have squatted 850, but I didn't try,
Right.
Um, so yeah, I love that. And of course, everyone's journey is different, but for the listener out there, how did you dive into I'm guessing you did some serious introspection and kind of self-discovery, if you will, along the way. I'm sure this wasn't an overnight process, but talk about how you approached that, with regard to understanding who you were first, not so much who you were trying to serve yet, but just how did you determine kind of your own makeup and DNA, if you will. What did that process look like?
Yeah, is a great question. So for me, it all was triggered by an event. So I listened to someone speak. So someone was speaking. His name was Garrett Gunderson. Like he's an extraordinary financial thought leader.
Hmm.
Like if you haven't heard of him, he provides a lot of value in the space. But
Yeah.
as I heard him speak, like it just triggered in my mind that I don't have to be afraid,
Hmm.
or I don't have like I can do things for myself and still bring a lot of value to society. It's not like I have to be a teacher to bring value to society. Like I can do
Hmm.
things that can benefit society and my family simultaneously. I don't have to sacrifice
Mm.
wealth or success for the name of society or for the name of playing it safe. Like I can go and do more. So that
Hmm.
triggered it. And that was just like the triggering point. It didn't mean I had it all solved or did the introspection right then, but that at
Sure.
least triggered that, you know what? I can pursue something more. Like I
Sure.
can do this. And so it
Yeah.
just started me on a journey of just small action steps of I'm going to try this and I'm going to take a little bit of action this. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to go to this conference. I'm going to
Sure.
study here. I'm going to associate or network here. And all of these cumulative events brought more clear picture of like, this is the
Yeah.
path I need to be on. And it started to piece together all these missing
Sure.
pieces that I never knew were missing until
Yeah, that's
that
really good.
triggering point.
So tell me, what at that triggering point, Give us a little more context. What was your life like at that point? Were you married? How old were you?
Yeah.
What were you doing
Let's
career
see.
wise?
So I was teaching at a school. I was a physical education teacher. I had been, I think that was year 4 of teaching,
Okay.
maybe year 3. And
Yep.
so it was just like this. I had been teaching not in a terribly long time, but I'd been teaching for a good chunk of time. So I had my legs under me. I knew how to teach. I knew what to do. I
Sure.
wasn't like overwhelmed. I was married. We had one son. I think the second son might have been on the way or really close to being on the way.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, like my wife did not work, so we just had a teacher salary. And if anyone's familiar with teacher salaries at the beginning, they're not
Sure.
fabulous. So
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
very good. So we were living just in an apartment, just living. We weren't like stressed, like we always stayed within our means, but
Hmm.
like you're not really like you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're
Yeah.
living that
You're not
lifestyle.
thriving financially.
Yeah,
You're not in poverty or on the street, but you're not really killing it.
correct. Yeah. So that's where I was, and so it just was just a normal, I guess you could almost say it was very typical American life where you're just living
Sure.
life, you're have enough to eat, you're not stressed about like losing money. I'm not upside down, but we couldn't go on vacations, like we could drive to camping events, but that's about it. Like there wasn't like
Hmm.
anything, like the experience of life was in that moment, which is what I think most people live, is
Sure.
most Americans live that.
Yeah. And I think there's a time to take things in general. It's a good thing to approach life day by day and enjoy the moment, right? We're not saying you should never enjoy the day or live in the present, of course. But I do think too many Americans get caught in the cycle of busyness and don't actually take the time to step back and then reflect and maybe reflect and look forward as far as, what am I trying to be intentional about? What do I want my life to look like? So, it is important to create that space to be able to kind of listen to a Garrett Gunderson or somebody like that and receive that message. So walk us through the kind of subsequent years after that triggering moment.
Yeah. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and figure out if I can create a entrepreneurship journey that will allow me to leave teaching. That was what I decided I was going to do, because I felt like I needed, that was going to be my quest to get out of teaching. Not, again, we already talked about why, but that was what I
Sure.
was going to do. So that triggered it. And so I did lots of things. So I tried some sales things. I tried real estate investing. Like I flipped some houses. I
Hmm.
even did some. I brokered a performing note once. Like I did all sorts of
Okay.
things in real estate. Like I even tried to wholesale. Like I was just trying to find something. And the reason I did that is I had a neighbor who was in real estate, and so we were doing it together, and we were
Hmm.
just on this journey. So um, I wasn't doing it blind either. I did have some education that I purchased, so that was a big
Hmm.
step. So I did purchase some real estate education, so I wasn't going to make drastic mistakes, but I still
Sure.
failed a lot, even with the
Hmm.
education. Like I
Gotcha.
didn't, like I lost some money on a flip. Like the
Hmm.
flips never went the way they were supposed to go to. Like
Hmm.
it was harder, longer, more money
Yeah.
than they were all every single time.
What year was this approximately?
It was 17, 18,
Okay.
19 in that
Got it.
range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So your teaching isn't your long-term play, but you haven't quite found your footing yet outside
Right.
of teaching.
Yes.
Um, and so, and I do, it's like people do have to try different things, and that's most people learn by doing, right? So it sounds like you were not being throwing caution to the wind. You invested in education. You had someone you were working with, so you weren't just trying this stuff blindly, but you just hadn't quite found your footing, if you will.
Yeah. And I was trying to, I think this kind of happens a lot with entrepreneurship, is you try and chase money. So you hear, oh, that's
Hmm.
a great avenue. And so everyone, this success story of someone that succeeded in this niche or this avenue.
Hmm.
And it was like, well, I think I can do that. That person doesn't look too different from me. And so I was like chasing that. But then when you get into that, you're like, they're like we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. They put in a whole bunch of work underneath here that led to
Sure.
this success. And so like when I got there, I was like, I don't like this work. I don't like this
Mm.
avenue. Like just because I don't want to chase money and grind through all this crap that I don't like doing. Maybe this person that had success liked doing it, but it wasn't for me. So like
Sure.
that was a part of the failure process for me, is as I was going through like finding the deals and doing the work and doing the due diligence, like that,
Hmm.
and dealing with contractors, like that wasn't
Hmm.
invigorating to me. Like I didn't feel like I was making a difference. I felt like I was chasing money, and chasing money is a losing game, at least in my mind. Like you're not going to find fulfillment in chasing money. So that's why
Sure.
I tried so many different things as well. As like, well, maybe if I tried this or that, I can find a different avenue and I will find fulfillment. I will find this is for
Sure.
me. But I never found it in real estate. Real estate as a job or a profession, like
Hmm.
I like investing in real estate, but for as a
Right.
job where I'm like the day-to-day manager and I'm running the
Yeah.
company, that wasn't what
Not
was
your thing.
fulfilling to me.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is that the types of real estate I'll put investing in quotes, that you mentioned, it's not really investing, and I'm not
Yeah.
putting it down, but it's transactional. In my opinion, fix and flipping is not investing.
Yeah. It's just a
Uh,
business. You're
the
you're
business,
using real estate as a business.
yeah, and then real estate, and it can be a very lucrative business, and real estate is a great place to invest and run a business. I mean, but that's not really a great long term play. So if you don't enjoy the day to day grind, as you said, and hustle and the transactional and all, there's a lot of behind the scenes work. Yeah, maybe you don't want to commit your next few decades to that.
Right. Correct.
So, okay. So now at this time, I mean, were there any other kind of, how else were you approaching the introspection as far as figuring out really what you would like, what you're made of kind of thing? Or was it pretty
Yeah.
much,
So
I'm going to try
pretty
this?
heavily in books and reading, and then just
Yeah.
like listening to thought leaders, like trying to get perspective on like how do you find your thing, like. And so
Sure.
there's a ton of books and just a ton of reading and a ton of listening to just different people. Like I've bounced around from everyone. I think a lot of entrepreneurs always attract to Tony Robbins because
Sure.
there's a lot of insight and power around like how do you find fulfillment and how do you find what you're looking to do. So like
Yeah.
going down those roads and studying those type of philosophy, I guess you could almost call them philosophers or
Yeah.
philosophies.
Yeah.
And so just those thought leaders that the big names you can think of, continue down the path of like really getting into what Garrett Gunderson was producing
Hmm.
and talking about. And it was just all like, because it's a whole bunch of information, and it
Sure.
takes, for me, it took a lot of to soak in. Like it
Yeah.
didn't just like, oh, I know what I want to do. It was like soaking in. And eventually, like it was just happenstance. But because I think there's an important lesson here.
Hmm.
There's two important lessons I think would your listener would
Yeah.
find value.
What are those?
Is
Yeah.
number one is because I was doing all of this and teaching, it was putting a strain on my relationship with my family because I was doing so much outside of teaching to try and figure this out. And
Hmm.
so I do want to put a word of caution, number one, on as you do go about this, specifically if you're trying to leave a full-time job, don't just become this grinder that just is like, someday, honey, then we'll be okay. Like it's not
Hmm.
that. You got to still focus and be present with your family and find a
Hmm.
way to either wake up really early or find a way to build it into your schedule where you're not just
Hmm.
deserting your family, or bring your family into the business so that
Hmm.
you're doing it together. Because
Sure.
that was a time where like it did cause a pretty frictional relationship for a little bit
Well,
there. So that,
if you would, and, we don't, I'm not going to pry too much, but I
yeah,
think it's an important piece because, we just gloss, as you said, we focus on the successes that everybody has, and entrepreneurship is so sexy these days. And, the fact is most of us are working from home, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're in charge. And so it's really hard to create boundaries. And I'm speaking from experience for as far as day to day, hour by hour boundaries. And, and kind of, you're in charge. I mean, you wake up, no one's telling you what to do. And so there's pressure to produce on that side, but then it can really, the pressure and stress and work of it all can overflow in a negative way into your family life, your mental health, which I want to talk more about on future episodes as well. But this is something that's very relatable for entrepreneurs and small business owners, especially if they have a family. So was it a bad day you had, or what? I'm being a little bit flippant, but
yeah.
what did that look like?
Yeah, so it honestly was me just thinking this is for the benefit of my family. I'm gonna, if I want to do this, I have to dive full in and I have to put in time. I have to go to these networking events. I have to be talking to people. I have to be reading these books. And so it just became, I'd get home from school. I would spend about probably an hour or two with my wife, and then I'd be gone for the rest of the evening. She'd put the children to bed, and then I would come back home. We'd do our just like hang out at night, and then same thing every day. So is what it felt like to her, even though in my mind it wasn't. I wasn't trying to do it this way. Is
Sure.
all of these other things were way more important than the family, and way
Sure.
more important than her. And so because I was spent the time spent was greater, obviously, because you spend more time doing those things. But the
Sure.
time that we were together wasn't high quality either. Like it was, I
Mhm.
was tired because I was doing so much. So it was a lot of me just like, I need to rest, or I need to sit on the couch. Can we just sit down for a second, or just kind of chill and
Mhm.
be lazy? When she
Right.
wanted to go be engaged and do things, hiking and walking and going on bikes and going to the park. But
Sure.
like it's hard to do all those things. And so this is a really big paradox that I think you have to kind of overcome, as every entrepreneur has to kind of come at arrival as what is
Mhm.
more important? What do you actually value in life? And how do you balance this in a way that you can still be really present and still be really impactful in the time that you have with your family, but
Sure.
then still have the energy to go do this stuff? And I think you have to pull back sometimes from business and spend more time with your
Mhm.
family and be
Yeah.
really intentional. Um, but I think for me, like it really put a strain on it. Like
Mhm.
it was not a good,
It was
I had to
sure.
make an introspective decision, like what's more important?
Yeah.
Like, do I just need to go back to teaching only, or can I make this work and balance it out?
Sure.
Um,
Now, was this, would you, just to kind of, before we move on, was it a 6 month period? I mean, I know it's not a direct answer. There's no way to
yeah,
answer that, but how long was this like strain on the family?
yeah. I mean, like I would probably say it was over a year of.
Got it.
It didn't start out like as fully being strained, because in the
Yeah.
beginning it was like this is kind of like, we haven't experienced this, but as the friction continues to build over
Sure.
time, it builds up and gets bigger and bigger. So
Understood. Yeah. I've interviewed very successful people on this show who, um, one stands out in my memory where she said that, you know, she came from extreme poverty and abuse and very, very difficult, circumstances. Um, Anna Kelly, I believe, but she, you know, she made it really big. She's very, very wealthy now, like very successful. And one of the things she said was maybe I could have taken my foot off the gas a little bit and reached X dollars 2 years later and been a little more present, you know, with my family. So, you know, I think it's still noble to have that drive, and, you know, it's okay to chase wealth and, you know, success in my opinion, right? But you got to keep it in perspective, and it's not easy, and everyone's journey is different. And there is, I think, a requirement for hard work. You know, it doesn't just show up
yeah,
in your lap, you know, just magically, you know.
it's
So
yeah, it's why it's a paradox. Like, because you can't not work, you can't just
sure.
have it. It doesn't just happen to you. So you do have to work hard, but I think you have to be really intentional with everything you're doing. So you have to be really intentional with the time you spend at work. You have to be really intentional with the time you're spending with your family, and then you
Sure.
have to purposely plan things to do with your family.
Absolutely.
It's like, because the work is going to happen no matter what. So you almost have to insert, we're going to do this with my family on this day,
Mhm.
and no work is there. And so as
Yeah.
you do those type of purposeful things, that helps, because then everyone feels involved, and then you can bring people in. It helps with everything, and it
Sure.
relieves the tension, the stress. But one thing that I think that I really wanted to mention when you just were talking was something I've really discovered recently is we have a lifetime. So everyone seems to want to race to X goal. Like typically,
Mhm.
like the W-2 person that isn't really entrepreneur, they're racing age 65, or they're trying,
Sure.
maybe they want to retire, so they're racing age 55. So everything is about getting to that point.
Yeah.
But then those are just like, most people are probably going to live to age 90, 85. Like they're still going to live 20 years. You're racing
Hmm.
to something that's arbitrary and doesn't matter. Like you
Sure.
don't, there's no winning for getting to age 65 with X amount of dollars or X amount of
Right.
wealth or success. It's not, you have a lifetime to live life and achieve everything you're doing. So you can wait, you can put your business on pause for a day and go spend time with your family, and you're going to be
Hmm.
just fine. Like, because you're not,
That's good.
there's not an end goal. It's your
Yeah.
life you're living, and you don't have to measure yourself from other people's
Yeah.
success.
No, that's really good. And the fact is, like you alluded to, once you hit that goal, it's going to be exciting and, you know, but at the end of the day, tomorrow comes and then nobody cares. Like, to be honest with you. So it's, you know, whether it happened on Monday or Tuesday, it's not really going to matter too much. That's really good. So you got to be able to stop and smell the flowers, but bigger, more importantly, I think be intentional about, like you said, carving out that time or scheduling the vacation ahead of time, because it's not just going to materialize on its own. So, yeah, I think if you look at somebody's calendar and how they spent their time, that's pretty telling with as far as what's actually important to them. So fast forward, to today. I mean, how did you get with to Big Life Financial, and how did you become a wealth strategist and tax strategist when you were a phys ed teacher? How did how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in that process of experimenting, like I just kept falling back to Garrett Gunderson. So Garrett Gunderson is an extraordinary financial thought leader. And it just kept saying, like, I was just drawn to that. Like, I've always loved math.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was a phys ed teacher and you wouldn't really associate math with phys ed, but like math has been probably my best subject overall, like my entire life. Like I get
Mm-hmm.
math, I can do it really quickly. Numbers are I pursued engineering slightly in college and I didn't want to do
Mm-hmm.
engineering. And for some
Mm-hmm.
reason, I thought engineering was the only thing associated with numbers. And so I just stepped completely away and went with,
It's
I
funny.
really
It's
like
funny.
sports.
It's funny you say that, because I going into college, I didn't know what to major in. And my mom said, well, you're good at math and science, so do engineering. So I said, okay. So I started down the engineering path as well. I was doing mechanical engineering. Ended up actually technically getting a bachelor's in sports management. So
Uh,
we don't have totally different stories there, but it's just funny because, yeah, I was good at math, but I didn't know what to do with that.
right. Correct.
So finance and math you're drawn to, and
Yeah.
money. Yep. So take it from there.
And so I kept relating to what Garrett was talking about. And it just like I just complete happenstance, like just as like this is an important point because it goes back to what we were talking about before. If you're going to find success, you still have to work and you still have to put action in. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept taking action on just different events and different learning experiences. And at one of these learning experiences, I happened to encounter my now business partner, Derek. And so
Okay.
Derek had started Big Life Financial prior to us meeting, and he already had a vision for what we were trying to do. And he was already in even more happenstance. Derek is Garrett Gunderson's brother-in-law. So
Okay.
like he was already connected and he was trying to build a similar business off to what Garrett was doing with a little bit more focus on tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just like this perfect melding point. Is I was really attracted to what Garrett was doing. I had no idea how to get into that space.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to meet Derek and it
Mm-hmm.
just bloomed from there. And we went like I've dove into hours and hours and hours of training on like numbers and math and like what works, what doesn't work, what is the best philosophies, but still keep it in mind because Garrett's big thing is it's not about the money. The money is like the least important thing,
Mm.
but you still have to solve the money problem
Sure.
to experience everything else you want to do. So the
Mm.
money is not important, but you still need money to experience life, to have the
Yeah.
finances, to have powerful relationships, to have good health, to even like so typically oftentimes to have a good relationship with whatever faith you're involved in. Like
Sure.
if that's not solved, all those things typically suffer. So
Right.
this thing that's not most important is needed to solve the things that are most important. And
Sure.
so that's like the connection point that we really thrive on is we want to help people solve the money problem so they can focus on what's most important.
Yeah. No, I mean, money is definitely important. This is, but absolutely, I agree with you. It's not the end all be all. It's not the end goal. It's not going to solve all your problems if you're just chasing money or wealth in and of itself. But it's critically important. If I just said the other day, your bookkeeper or your CPA, they know a lot about you or know a lot about your business. They got all the answers are there as far as how you're actually doing with your business. So just the numbers don't lie in that sense. And money, I don't think it's healthy to bury your head in the sand and not learn about money, not understand how money works, how it flows. Okay, and so Derek Van Ness is your business partner, right?
Correct.
So how did that come to, so you just immerse yourself in learning all this stuff, and sounds like you hit it off with Derek. What would you say about kind of how that evolved? And for the listener, if they're thinking about starting a business with someone, or they already have a business and they want to bring on a partner, how did that go for you two, and what lessons were learned with regard to business partnership?
Yeah, it just started out with him like almost being a mentor at the
Mm-hmm.
base level of like him. Here's the resources I want you to study. Here's some things I want you to help me do. And
Mm-hmm.
the best way for me to describe it is I brought a lot of value to him. So I just
Sure.
kept bringing value over and over again. And I was just my own, like I had my own business, and I was just like a contractor with him and
Got
just
it.
assisting him with things. And it got to the point where I brought, I guess you could say, enough value that he felt
Mm-hmm.
like this is someone I want to partner with. And so then
Sure.
we don't, because we've been working like in the mentoree type relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, let's just form something together and just
Sure.
go together instead of
I love that.
you working. Not, it wasn't working for him, but I was being like a contractor for him and doing things in his behalf and through the
Yeah.
company. So that's how it's developed. And I don't think that's normal, but I feel like if you're bringing partnerships on to kind of get to that question you had, I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to have someone, number one, that you like, but
Sure.
that it brings you value, that they're doing something that you don't do well. So
Mm-hmm.
like they're the other side of the coin of what you're not good at. So Derek is like, I'm a very logical person and a very numbers based person, and like
Mm-hmm.
very, people call me stoic and like that type
Mm-hmm.
of personality. Derek is almost on the other side of the coin of me. He's very
Mm-hmm.
artistic. He likes numbers and stuff, but his personality is much more on the, you'd say, on the
Creative
other
or
side, the creative and that type of side of things. So
sure.
it's been a good melding point because we have different strengths and
Yeah.
different things like that. Now, I think it's important also to note that you do need to make sure legal things are in place as you set up partnerships, because if
Sure.
legal things aren't in place with partnerships and they dissolve and the relationship dissolves, it can be really messy for people. So don't
Absolutely.
just make partnerships without legal help,
Yeah.
because I've been exposed to some really nasty business divorces that are,
Hmm.
they ruin, like it ruins the business and it ruins cash flow. It ruins, like it
Hmm.
ruins relationships between parties when it doesn't have to be
So
that way.
what was that? And we won't dive into specifics, but was that in the real estate phase of your career? What
No,
was
that's
that?
with the people that I've been working with now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like as we service small business owners, and some of them
Sure.
happen to have partnerships. And as we've been a part of that relationship and servicing them,
I see.
we've been a part of their divorce.
Got it. I see. I see. So not something you've personally, you've been very close to it, but not, you weren't one of the partners.
Correct.
So
Yes.
got it. Understood. You had a front row seat, unfortunately, to the business divorce. Got it. Um,
Correct. Yeah.
so now before I do have some questions to throw at you, but talk a little bit more about the business, how your business is structured, who it is you serve specifically. You've already talked about it a little bit, but how do you approach your clients? What do you actually do for them? Because, for the listener out there, they understand it's like taxes and wealth and saving money, but what does that really look like if a client comes to you? Who are you serving, and what does the process look like?
Yeah, so we primarily serve successful small business entrepreneurs. So these are people that are, when I say successful, success is defined in different ways. I'm talking financially successful. They're making at least $200,000 a year, all the way up to millions. But most of our people fall between 200 and about $600,000 a year in taxable income.
Okay.
And these are people that typically don't have large accounting teams. They typically just have one accountant, and that's about it. Maybe they have one financial advisor, and that's it. And we're coming in to see is, can we bring value here? Can we help you save some taxes that your
Mm-hmm.
accountant isn't bringing to your attention? Can we
Mm-hmm.
help you potentially grow your money a little safer by not necessarily competing or take away from your other advisor, but do you want to allocate some funds over to another arena that isn't in what this advisor can bring? Or do you happen to have loans in different ways? Like we help a lot of our clients are in the medical space, so they have student loans. Can we
Mm-hmm.
help you more efficiently pay off the student loans to keep more money over time? Our goal is, our thought process and our philosophy is that you have delivered value to your customer. You've been
Mm-hmm.
rewarded by delivering that value with money.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes, a lot of that money that you've been rewarded with will disappear from you unnecessarily. So if you could meet a criteria in the tax code
Mm-hmm.
that would allow you to keep that dollar, you have unnecessarily paid it. So oftentimes, the people we're working with could have done something to keep that dollar instead of it going to the government, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't because they didn't know it existed. So if we can
Mm-hmm.
help you keep $20,000 or $30,000 every year that was going to go to taxes, but now gets
Hmm.
to stay with you. That's $20,000 or $30,000 that can go back into your business or go into a family fund or go into a future wealth opportunity. But
Sure.
because you've kept that rate of return on those dollars is far bigger than trying to chase huge rates of return in the market or in other
Mm.
investments. So now you don't have to take excessive risk because you're being super efficient with the dollars that you've already earned.
Hmm. And I think I remember you on the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast talking about um, essentially you all plug in as another team member. Is that fair to say? I guess what I'm getting at is, the natural pushback is, no, I already have my CPA, I already have my attorney. They're not going to, I don't need that to be replaced. So how do you work with the current professionals who are already working with these clients?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that and it's not their fault, but it's just this what society tells us. Specifically when you start a business, find a good CPA, find a good attorney. But then we stop there. So as our
Hmm.
business grows, as we become more successful, we just assume I already have my team together, my tax team,
Hmm.
my attorney team. That's already set. I don't need to add additional people. But that's out of all of the experience I've learned is that's an incorrect and it's going to lose you money
Mm.
proposition. So the role that we play is we fill the role as a new team member. We're not trying to replace any accountants
Hmm.
or any attorneys on your team, but we can bring a lot of additional value to people by joining your tax team, because we have attorneys too that we refer to because there's some legal things and trusts and things
Hmm.
like that we can help people set up that are really tax efficient or ways to protect assets that they might not have access to. But we also let us join as a wealth advisor team, not replacing your current person if you don't want to replace them, but just
Hmm.
we can bring value that we can almost guarantee is not being delivered to you currently,
Hmm.
specifically for that client that we serve, which is the successful financial business owner between 200 to about a million. There's a really
Hmm.
low chance that they're receiving the services and the strategies and the things that we're bringing to the table for their
Hmm.
for them. So
Sure. That makes sense. I've got my CPA who I've worked with for, I don't know now, 8 or 9 years, maybe longer. I have, I like working with with him and his team, and I have no intention of replacing him. And it's just easier to keep it with him. Right. But the
right,
fact is he's backward looking. We're not actually meeting and doing a whole lot and most CPAs are like this. They want to save you money, but it's all reactive, and it's just what actually happened last year that I can help save you on taxes. There's very little planning and intentionality that goes into that side of things for
yeah,
most business owners, I would say. So you're joining alongside that CPA, not working in their office, but you're part of you're a new part of the team, if you will, to add more strategy, planning, intentionality with regard to tax saving. And what other, besides saving money on taxes, what else does your business offer?
yeah. So we can save you money on taxes. We can help you capture the savings because one of the big misconceptions out there is this is why lottery winners, when they get a huge chunk of money, like it disappears and they go bankrupt. It's because
Hmm.
there's a security that comes with a large amount of money, and you just
Hmm.
go into this unconscious spending mode because you feel like the money's there. I'm secure enough. I have enough in the bank. I can just spend it. And
Hmm.
so is what we help people do is we separate new income and saved income away from them out of
Hmm.
their spending account, and we create automations so they can still spend in an unconscious way, but the saved dollars get captured so they can deliberately choose to either consume those in the form of spending or get them working for them back in their business or their other investment opportunities. And that's a key point that I think a lot of people miss is just because we save you money doesn't mean it's going to be automatically driven towards a new wealth opportunity because oftentimes
Sure.
unconscious spending will take it away from you. Like you're
Hmm.
going to unconsciously spend it. So we stop that from happening or can at least slow it from happening. You can still spend it if you want, but
Hmm.
at least you have a choice around it versus it just being an unconscious thing.
Sure. So not just saving on taxes, but actually saving it, or putting those dollars to work with another investment
Correct.
opportunity. Um, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm in a mastermind group that I think you would really like. The group members, we're all about this type of thing. It's called the Passive Income Mastermind, and we use infinite banking and different strategies. But of course, it's really at the end of the day up to each member in the group to kind of put this into action. Okay. And, tax savings, and then kind of stopping the wasteful spending of those tax savings. So it sounds like saving money on taxes, saving money after saving money on taxes, if you will, and being able to put that money back to work. And I know there are a lot of other angles that you all approach this problem from, but I think what might be helpful is if we talk about maybe a case study, if you can kind of walk us through, talk about a client. You don't have to name names, but give us a real world example of how you've been able, how you and your business and your team have been able to help somebody with these issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So here's just a very, we're just going to go with just an avatar of someone that makes $500,000 a year.
Perfect.
And again, we can still help people less than that, and not saying, but 500,000 is a good point, because typically they're paying six figures in taxes, and it's a good
Sure.
point for us to highlight how we do this. So what we do is we do an analysis of where they're at. Is there anything that's missing? So for example, a lot of medical practitioners oftentimes miss the research and development tax credit. Like, it's something that they qualify for oftentimes, but they don't claim it. So that's something we can go in and help them claim and apply to their taxes. And oftentimes we can go backwards and have the IRS send them a check. So most of our medical practitioners that we help are going to get somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 every year on the R&D credit. And it's a credit, so it's dollar for dollar reduction in taxes. So we can go backwards too, and we can have the IRS send them a check. Like, let's just say in 2020, they qualified for the R&D credit but didn't claim it. We can amend their 2020 taxes, and the IRS will send them a $5,000 check.
Wow, I see.
And so that's where we
cool.
start, is, can we bring money back from the IRS first? Is there anything we can get back that we have, that you missed, that you should have claimed back then, that is actually, because most things you can't go backwards on.
Sure.
But the R&D credit is one. So we go backwards first. Can we recover money from the IRS that is yours but doesn't need to be, but you don't have currently? And then we look for, how can we be proactive, and how can we implement things prior to the end of the year so that you pay less in tax? We typically approach that from just a few perspectives of, can you invest in something that has a tax break? So a lot of, like, you're familiar with, real estate has tax breaks.
Sure.
Can we help you get into a real estate opportunity so you save taxes? Energy sector, can we help you get into the energy sector so you save taxes? Can we help you invest in a donation strategy so you can create a tax arbitrage where I had to pay $1, but I'm going to save $2 in taxes, so I'm plus $1? So we look and apply all of these different areas so that when we get to the end of the year, their tax bill is less, and oftentimes it's significantly less. It's going to be hundreds of thousands for the 500,000, not hundreds of thousands, but 100,000 ish off their taxes for the $500,000 person. And then we are going to look to then take that savings and use that for the next year to help accelerate all of those things again. So you are investing in more things that save you more taxes, but are also going to have a rate of return and back into donation. So we're using saved tax dollars to save more dollars into the future. And oftentimes we use what you mentioned with that infinite baking type whole life policy as our takeoff point for that, because it's more efficient than taking off from a bank. So we have the money flowing through there, the tax savings flow into the whole life policy, and then you take from the whole life policy to go save more taxes, and then the saved taxes come back into the whole life policy. And you just keep doing this process over and over again. And then eventually you're going to be able to, the goal is, like, for most of our clients, is once we've saved them in this cycle for a while, we can start peeling off some of the savings and investing into their business or into other opportunities, their growth opportunities that will help them continue to accelerate their wealth. But the goal is to make like a self-sustaining tax savings circle.
Got it.
System.
Yeah, that's really good. And I love what I was thinking about was it really helps the client not grind more. So speaking of the lesson we talked about earlier, which is kind of being more, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice time with your family to be a successful entrepreneur. Well, if you're taking an intentional and efficient approach to wealth management and tax savings and investing, then you don't actually have, you can make more money with your current amount of work and your current business.
Correct.
You don't necessarily have to grind harder. You can probably actually work a little bit less if you're being more smarter about how you approach things. So tell me, what does this look like? Is it does your client have a quarterly meeting with you all, or how does this actually play out? Why can't I just do this on my own? I know that's two different questions, but
Right.
you know, what is it, the accountability piece, or is it the network that you all have, or, you know, how does this actually play out, and why do you find most clients do better working with your business versus not working with you all?
Yeah, excellent question. So I'll start with the how often do we meet, and then I'll answer the
Sure.
why is this something you typically you could probably do it on your own maybe, but why is it the way we don't have as much success? So what's the benefit of working with us? So
Right.
working with us, when we first start with people, we meet pretty regularly because we have to figure out where are you currently allocating your money? Like what are you currently investing in? And do we have to peel off some of those to then invest in something that will save taxes, or and put your money somewhere that will help you save taxes? So we have to get a clear picture, and we have to meet regularly throughout the year. When we first meet with someone, more than we normally would. Once we're established with someone, it's once a quarter that we meet with people and just get a snapshot of where they're at, because businesses fluctuate. You're going to have up years and down years, and you might not need as many tax strategies one year as you need another year, because you might have a slower year, or something might be going wrong, or you might have purchased a lot of equipment, so you have a huge amount of deductions. So we're not just like guessing. Like, we're trying to be really deliberate about where are you going to fall with your AGI, and can we help lower that? So we meet quarterly, sometimes even on the back end of the year, and the September onward, we might meet even once or twice more, to if there's a new opportunity or new thing that we need
you need to pull the trigger before the end of the year, right? You need to take some
yes,
kind of
you
action.
They have to get on it, but there's some due diligence that needs to be done. They need to understand what's going on, because we don't want, this kind of goes to your question of like, can I do this myself?
Yeah.
Our goal is to enable you to be able to technically go on and do it without us, but we're the accountability, and we are going to introduce you to more opportunities along the way. We're the connection point between all these opportunities. You could technically go find them yourself if you wanted to,
right?
But we have them already in house, and we can just offer them to you.
Yeah.
But because relationships disappear, business relationships, people move, we lose contact. Our goal is to make it so that you could technically do it without us. So we are very educationally based, and you understand the principles, you understand the philosophies, so that you could maybe take it to your accountant, and maybe your accountant's really gung-ho, and they can make these connections for you. And then you'd have just your accountant. We feel like we bring enough value to the situation that people stay with us, and we're enough of an accountability partner and a help that we're not a drag or a deterrent for the situation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Well, as we start to wrap up here, Justin, I've got some rapid fire questions for you. You personally, what's one thing that people misunderstand about you?
I think people think because I'm so stoic that I'm hard to talk to, but I feel like I'm pretty good at holding a conversation, and I can have some entertainment. Like, people have maybe it's myself. I need to be more outgoing. I struggle with that, but I think some people think, oh, he's too scary. He's just a big finance guy. He's all about numbers. He's not fun or enjoyable to talk to. But I enjoy talking about sports and outdoors and all that stuff too.
Yeah, so understood. That's a good one. What's one of your biggest failures or regrets in life?
I think regret is not taking so long for me to go big and actually put myself out there and be a leader and a thought, and like try and reach for being willing to fail.
Awesome. It's not awesome that you have the regret, but it's, it's a great answer. Right. If you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Do more figuring out what you wanted to do. Like, try and figure things out more. Don't just like pursue business, like dive deeper. Like, it goes kind of back to fear of failure, but like pursue other things. Like, try and figure out other things besides engineering and physical education. Like, that was like my two choices. Like, I tried engineering, I didn't like it, so I just went this direction. Like, I should have explored more. I should have, like, because honestly, I feel like I probably, if I would have gone backwards, I probably would have gone an attorney route and like gotten my law degree and gone all the way to like being a tax attorney and being that level of, but because I didn't pursue those things, I didn't go down that route. And maybe someday I'll do that, as my time frees back up, but I missed out on that opportunity because I didn't know it was available.
Well, that's why we're bringing the lessons to the listener out there, so they can, not make that mistake. If you were given $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? No strings attached, and it's not a tax question, or it's just for you or your family, or what would you do with it?
Yeah, I would almost, for me, just because I understand how much money is needed for the future and how much I would invest it, almost all of it in some level or another, because that would create generation. That has the potential to create generational income. And with
Hmm.
some of the other things that we didn't touch on, is we can help bridge the gap between money and deliverance of teaching your children how to handle
Mm.
money and making the legacy actually have sustainability potential instead of
Hmm.
just being spent. Um,
Sure.
like I know that I could create that structure within my family, so I would use that to create a generational wealth
So
system.
that
So
you all work on that piece of it a little bit as well with your business, the kind of the family legacy part of things.
yeah, because it's like the last piece that people want solved. They
Hmm.
want the initial solving of saving taxes, and that's a
Yeah.
nice big. That's a big. That's an initial like instant
Low hanging
gratification
fruit.
win,
Yeah. Yeah.
low hanging fruit. But the bigger impact that we want people to realize is that you can teach these principles and have these principles last through your children and your
Hmm.
grandchildren, your great grandchildren, so that your generations aren't, you have all the success and then it falls off a cliff. It's you have
Sure.
all the success and your children take off from here and then they have
Yeah.
it and then it keeps, so perpetuating the knowledge and perpetuating the values and perpetuating
Hmm.
your ability to create value in the world is something that's missing. That's like the final piece of what we bring to the
Sure.
equation.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know I had someone on the show and he does his clients, that's what he does, but his clients have $500 million or more. And so that's a
Right.
different client avatar. And there's a huge need for that in the kind of under 500 million, which is where most of us fall. Right.
Right.
So I love that. Um, in your opinion, what's one important personality trait that's required for someone to be successful in your line of work? Could be entrepreneurship in general or your specific business, just a personality trait you think is necessary.
I'm gonna give two because they're different, but I feel like I feel like both of them are needed. So number one is just grit, the ability to grind through failure and not give up. Not saying you grind your time away, but grind through failure in the learning process and
Hmm.
not just giving up because you hit an obstacle. Like you're not going to be
Hmm.
successful in business if you give up when you hit the first obstacle. So
Sure.
that's I think a really important one. But I think creativity is
Mm.
really needed. Like you have to create a creative, abundant type mindset of
Hmm.
problem solving. And even if you're a logical person like myself, like you can still be
Yeah.
creative with your problem solving. And I think
Yeah.
that's needed as an entrepreneur.
That's something I think I kind of maybe didn't completely understand. And I'm sure there's more to understand with that, but yeah, I'm more logical, like you. And so I never thought of myself as a creative person, but if you're adding value and you're solving problems, you're creating value, you're creating solutions for people. That's creativity. So I think any successful entrepreneur, I agree, needs that creativity. What's one challenge that you are facing in your business right now?
Trying to have enough back end support so that our systems can, so we can still deliver on what we're trying to do with the increase of clients that are coming our
Mm,
way. So the back end support, training those up so that it still feels seamless and we're able to fulfill our promises like in a timely manner.
got it. Yep. Every business has challenges, that's for sure. So but it's a good sign that you have more and more clients coming on board. Um, what's a book that you could recommend for my audience?
Okay, so because we have a business owner audience, I feel like the book Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port is an
Mm,
extraordinary resource for
okay.
business owners, specifically in the service space, but it could be for the non-service space, like
Mm,
product based, but specifically for service-based entrepreneurs, Book Yourself Solid gives you really good
mm.
actionable steps that you can take to act like do exactly what the book says, book yourself solid.
Awesome. I have not read that. I'll have to check that out. Um, what's one question you wish I'd asked that I haven't asked?
I think we got it. I don't have one. Yeah. I think we
That
talked
means
about a
I did
lot.
it. We did a good job. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Justin, this has been fantastic, man. We have covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing about some of your own kind of shortcomings or regrets, if you will. And but just nobody's path is a straight line to success. So I know that our listeners are going to be able to relate to your story for sure. So thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day.
And just real quick, where can our listeners find you online?
Oh, yeah. The easiest way is LinkedIn, and just go to LinkedIn, Justin Maxwell, tax strategist, I think is what it is. And then, or you can, if you want to talk with me, getting on my calendar is a great way too. And the easiest way to do that is go to biglifefinancial.com/TRP, and you'll go right to my calendar, and we can have a discussion.
Awesome. Well, Justin Maxwell, this has been fantastic. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And to our listener out there, thank you for spending your most valuable resource with us, and that is your time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.